For decades, high schools and colleges have taught classic literature to students with the intention of teaching them valuable reading and critical thinking skills, while also giving them a more historic experience that was once a phenomenon in its own time. However, recently it has become a topic of debate whether these classics hold any real relevance to the students they're being taught to, and whether they are actually better than any other novel being written within the last decade. One such example is The Great Gatsby, a 1925 novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald that is said to have had a great impact when it was first published and continues to have a great influence on its readers today. However, is this novel really as relevant as schools claim it to be? Is its impact as significant as we've been taught to believe? From the significance of likening the novel to modern society, to the untold truth about its initial unsuccessful debut, The Great Gatsby has definitely had an impact on students, whether it's positive or negative. In her article, The Debate Over Whether Gatsby Really Is Great, Vigila Pandian claims many classic works are important because they were influential during the time that they were published, stating that there's value in exploring major artworks that have shaped culture. One of the most beautiful aspects of classic literature is that it tells the story of a time that we haven't known, giving students who read these works a broader understanding and a wider perspective. Having more sources to go off of allows the reader to understand more that they otherwise would not have had the opportunity to learn about.
I think that it's good to learn about characters and how different people can be. The book does highlight that not everyone is perfect and how everyone has their secrets or a bad thing that they're doing, and I guess it's good to teach right from wrong, and it's good to expand a student's horizon, but that's it.
Despite being against its relevance to modern society, Leilani admits that the lessons taught in The Great Gatsby are valuable for students to learn and give them a larger perspective. Furthermore, reading classic literature teaches students how to make the connection between two seemingly different things. When reading a classic novel, it's easy to brush it off by saying this old book has nothing to do with our time. What's even the point? However, if taught right, students can learn valuable likening skills, which is important for students to be able to see themselves in past situations and learn from history. Ruth Holmes shared in her article, Does Gatsby Still Matter? An experience where a student said it helped him understand that being a good person might not be as black and white as it is made out to be. Isn't grappling with this kind of complexity the goal of all great literature?
It's important to be able to also understand the perspectives of times gone by, okay? Because things that maybe are from a different era from classical literature are still relevant today because of the same types of feelings, emotions, attitudes, and things going on in society. Even though society looked different, a lot of the same problems and some good things still happen today.
However, like any other debate, there's another side to it, such as the fact that The Great Gatsby was not as influential during its time as some claim it to be, that the characters are perceivably flat, and that classic literature as a whole tends to be very non-inclusive. In her article, Why I Despise The Great Gatsby, Catherine Scholes debunks a popular argument that The Great Gatsby was influential during its time. It might come as a shock that it had mediocre sales and received very mixed reviews. It wasn't until a couple decades after that it began to garner more of a reputation. In addition, Scholes found the characters to be very flat and often emotionless, as each character is clearly meant to be a symbol. She states that in the relationship between Daisy and Gatsby, this he constructs out of 1 part nostalgia, 4 parts narrative expedience, and 0 parts anything else, love, sex, desire, any kind of palpable connection. Fitzgerald himself acknowledges this flaw. Of the great redemptive romance on which the entire story is supposed to turn, he admitted, I gave no account and had no feeling about or knowledge of the emotional relations between Gatsby and Daisy. This, of course, is a major flaw in the story and could alone be a very real reason to choose a different novel for students to read. Moreover, many students just don't seem to find the book enjoyable.
I think that The Great Gatsby wasn't a good book. I think that it doesn't really teach much about literature, and it doesn't really teach us much about current events.
I don't think students really care about it. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think they care. I think it could be good for learning, but I don't think it's that relevant. They prefer to read more modern books than read at all.
After I read it, I was just really tired.
However, it's not just The Great Gatsby that many have issues with. Joelle Jean, in her article, Do We Still Need to Read and Teach Classics?, found that Cameron Adams estimates that 90% of her high school literature curriculum was written by white men, 9% by white women, and just 1% by BIPOC authors. Although it's the hard truth, classic literature just does not have the diversity to make minority students feel seen. Sheehan later paraphrases Maya Wang's beliefs that books that don't seem to speak to modern-day students should be replaced, freeing up space in curriculum for more diverse authors.
I think that reading classic literature is not very important to high school students. Although there are some aspects of it that allow us to reflect on history and how the world operated back then. The world has changed in many aspects, and I think that in regards to how classic literature plays a part in today's world, it's not extremely relevant.
Lastly, the debate revolves largely around whether modern novels are more relevant and inclusive to students and should replace classic novels in the classroom. However, maybe the answer to this solution is not so black and white. Maybe the answer is in the middle.
Modern literature for students is more relatable because it does take place in a more current time frame. But classic literature, as long as students are given the opportunity to look at it through the lens of how would these characters interact in today's society, what's different, good, bad, or otherwise about the era of the classic literature, I think that there are definitely benefits to the classic literature.
Mm-hmm. When you take a step back, it's clear that there are benefits that come from both and that they contribute to very different lessons and values to the classroom. It seems that the two mediums can actually accomplish more by working in tandem.
I think there's a balance to learning about more classic literature and learning about modern literature, because I feel like knowing about the differences can help you reach the highest form of literature. For me personally, I found more that modern books such as Hunger Games to be more interesting, which probably gave it a little more of an impact to me than The Great Gatsby. But I still think that I learned a lot from The Great Gatsby. I still think it had some sort of impact.
However, that does not change the flaws that are woven into The Great Gatsby. Although the story is great and teaches valuable lessons, it's slow and often boring and is probably not the best option for high school students to be reading.
I do not think that The Great Gatsby should be taught in high schools or any schools, really. Just because there are way better classics you can choose that teach better things. For example, To Kill a Mockingbird, that one's about racism, and it teaches us core parts about our history in a way that The Great Gatsby just doesn't. So I think we can still read classic literature that will teach us better things than The Great Gatsby. It shouldn't be that book, and there are just better options that we should go for.
To conclude, I think that there's a need for balance in our classrooms, and the solution is not to toss out our classics, nor stick to them religiously, but to rotate and find a good balance to keep students from getting bored, as well as choosing books that will maintain their interest.
If you want to learn, you will learn more. If you don't care, you won't learn that much.
In conclusion, it's clear that the impact of classic literature is important and worth keeping around. However, that is not to say that there are many ways that schools can improve upon students' experiences when reading these classic works. Because most high school students don't care, it's important to take into consideration that forcing them to read a book that is already considered to be boring and slow by many adults, such as The Great Gatsby, is probably not the best option for a high school student and should be put off till college when they're actually choosing to be there. Because if they don't want to learn it, they're not going to. There's a plethora of classic novels that students might actually enjoy reading, and choosing to teach more interesting works will benefit not only the students, but also the teachers who have to put up with them. Furthermore, because of the different perspectives and lack of representation in classic literature, it's healthy for students to have a blend of both classic and modern works. Ultimately, there's a need for balance between classic literature and modern literature because both are equally important in different ways, and by rotating, you prevent students from getting bored of something that they usually don't want to be doing anyways.
When you're reading it, does it sound like retarded? Like when you wrote?
No, it sounds educated. It's just like...
Like what I said the last time, it was like so stupid. I don't know what I was thinking.
No, maybe you're just dumb, bro. No. I hope you get crushed by a 400-pound squat.
Okay. Bruno, no.
Damn. Can't find something.
Oh, cereal?